most chilling cases in Canadian history. The victim and the perpetrators are all teenagers, between 13 and 16 years old, and all but one are girls. A crime so violent, it sent shockwaves through Victoria, the peaceful capital of British Columbia, and made headlines around the world. Reena Virk, who has been living in a foster home, was going to spend the weekend with her parents. On Friday night, a friend calls to invite her to a party by the river. Reena first says she would rather stay home, but in the end decided to go. Reena's mother is concerned for the safety of her rebellious daughter.
I don't know if I feel comfortable about this. Her mother said, don't go. These girls don't like you. Why would you go? Well, I think they want to bury the hatchet. I think they want to make it right. And she agreed to meet them.
By early morning, Reena has not returned. Her mother calls the foster home, but Reena is not there either. By law, the foster home is obligated to notify police when residents miss their curfew.
For a youth to go missing on a Friday night and be reported missing, especially from a foster home, which is where this girl was at the time, is not unusual at all. Normally they return home within 72 hours.
By Monday morning, Reena is still missing. The police make inquiries at her school. In the following days, disturbing rumors begin circulating among the students.
The number one rumor was that there'd been some sort of altercation and that a young girl had gone missing, or in fact, perhaps had even been murdered.
And what made the case a little more difficult at the beginning was some of the kids had reported seeing the missing girl after she was allegedly murdered. So the information was inconsistent.
This is a young lady who had been missing before, had been reported missing before, and as a result, we believed that she would probably show up in the next couple of days like she had in the past.
Reena's parents emigrated from India. Desperate for attention, she was excluded by her peers and became estranged from her family.
Some accounts, nice girl. Other accounts, she's lied about things to do with her parents. She's lied about things to do with her friends. And she had a hard time fitting in, so she would do what she could to fit in.
Rumors circulate that she was savagely beaten by a swarm of kids and that she had died from the attack.
But there was nothing concrete. We didn't have anybody who had seen her be killed. We had nobody who had heard firsthand, because we're trying to get a feel, are we doing a missing person case here? Are we doing a homicide investigation?
Finally, the police get the lead they've been searching for. Someone identifies Chloe and Jesse and said they'd been bragging about beating Reena so badly that they broke her nose. It happens that these two girls actually live at the same foster home with Reena. The police pay them a visit and take them in for questioning. Things begin moving quickly after that.
It wasn't very long before the first girl started confessing to being involved in the assault, to what she knew about the actual murder. She didn't witness the murder, and she only had it second and third hand.
Bob Downey gets the first confession. Chloe gives him the names of all the attackers. 1 boy and 7 girls. The boy is 15 years old, and the youngest girl has only just turned 13. But one confession isn't enough. Bob Downey authorizes arrest warrants for all of the suspects. He takes charge of their interrogations.
This is not a case where you had young people breaking down and crying and getting upset. And I can recall a number of the young females who were responsible for the assault sitting in there and chatting and laughing. And I recall walking through there almost feeling disgusted. It was almost unexpected.
The police learn that these kids often meet under the Craigflower Bridge in a riverside park. The bridge is near their school, and each week they party there until late into the night. A favorite hangout hidden from the watchful eyes of adults, where the kids feel free to do anything they want.
The victim was lured to this location under the auspices of coming to a party, and they set her up. They lured her there, and they were ready and had planned to beat her, and that's what they did.
On this particular night, Reena had decided to join the group under the bridge. When Reena saw Chloe arrive, she knew she wasn't invited to the party to bury the hatchet. Chloe immediately starts in on her.
One girl even had a cigarette and burned her right in the middle of the forehead, which my opinion would be that because of the victim's ethnicity, that would have been an insult to her and her customs and to her family and everyone, and I think that would have been done intentionally.
And this girl responded with a swing back, and basically the fight was on. And then other kids started jumping in, to the point that 8 kids jumped in. They swarmed her. She had no way out. There was no way she was going to win this or escape with the mob mentality that kicked in. At that point, she had nobody in the world. There was nobody there for her. There's nobody on her side. One of our suspects finally saw that she had had enough. And this girl was tough. She was a kickboxer. She had been in fights before, and they knew that she was a tough girl. And she made the other kids stop. She said, enough. She's had enough. Anybody else who wants to hit her is going to have to go through me. And it was good that she did that, because that assault would have carried on. They stole her bag from her, and it was almost like rats with a piece of meat.
When the swarming is over, the attackers leave Reena to her fate.
So she was mobile at that time. She was walking slow. Some describe her as staggering. She didn't talk to anybody and started walking across the bridge in an easterly direction or towards Saanich. Kids that saw her describe her face as being bruised already, bloodied nose, and like I say, staggering in her walk.
All 8 of the young attackers make a pact. They agree that Reena was last seen crossing the Craigflower Bridge. Then a twist. 6 of the kids say that Warren and Kelly broke away from the group and followed Reena. But Kelly and Warren insist that they simply went home. The contradictory statements lead the police to expand their investigation from a missing persons case to a possible homicide. Police decide to focus their search in the river under the bridge. The Gorge is a tidal river that flows from Victoria Harbor. It's overgrown with weeds and brush and has a strong current. The police are well aware that their search will be tough.
Well, the water. It's your enemy. It's an enemy for any kind of investigation, especially with forensics. It's both a psychological barrier for policemen and for criminals. Quite often, a criminal will dispose of something in the water thinking it's gone. No one's going to find it. I'm safe. It's been thrown, quote unquote, in the ocean. Well, that's what the dive team's there for, is to remove that psychological barrier, to go down there and to find the stuff.
The dive team has determined the search area, taking into account the level of the tide on the night of the crime. The river isn't very deep, but the bottom is mud. Every step makes the water more murky. For the divers, this means visibility is almost nil. They will have to feel their way in the dark. Rick Gosling knows how hard it is to look for evidence underwater.
You do it first, quite often by touch. And from a flat, muddy surface to suddenly reaching out and touching a body can be quite emotional, quite scary. And then out of the gloom, I suppose you'd say, the body sort of blooms up on you. And the fact that the visibility is so bad, you have to be quite close to actually confirm that it is a body. Psychologically, it's very hard on a lot of divers.
They make the first discovery, a pair of girls' underwear.
Most of the items we find are on the bottom. They're not floating anymore. They're not subject to the tides. Quite often objects that sink to the bottom, even light objects, like clothing or papers or things like that, once they become waterlogged and touch the bottom, quite often they stay there.
As on dry land, every precaution has to be taken when recovering evidence underwater.
You never know what small amounts of evidence may still be just slightly clinging to the fabric. So what we try to do is, every time we seize an object underwater, we try to have a large enough bag that we can encompass it without perhaps picking it up and moving it. And in that way, we also capture some of the water that's immediately surrounding the object that may or may not contain trace evidence, hairs, fibers, things like that.
Next, the dive team finds a pair of jeans.
So at that point, we thought that we were on the right track. We had been moving in the direction that we thought a missing girl might be if she'd gone into the water at that time. We felt confident that within a short period of time, we might find her.
Hours pass, and the divers have found nothing more than the 2 pieces of clothing.
It was very frustrating. And we felt sure that she must be somewhere. It would have to be an extremely unusual, heavy, fast current to move a body once it's on the bottom. So we weren't sure why we weren't finding the missing girl if we found her clothing, unless perhaps she just wasn't there.